I'm in Clearwater, Florida, speaking to Chris Taylor, part of the British 49er team and sponsored by Allen Brothers. So, Chris, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And tell us, how long you've been sailing the 49er now?
So I've been in the 49er now for about 3.5 years. I started off, did a year of crewing, and then about a year and a half ago switched to helming.
Okay.
So yeah.
And so you've gone back to the easy part of the boat, because there's no unfairer spread of the load in a boat than the 49er, is there? You just stand at the back and shout, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I stand at the back, pull the jib in occasionally, but even when that gets too hard, you give it to the crew. They're definitely the horsepower in the front, and we like to say that we're the brains in the boat, but generally they kind of help with that as well. So
yeah,
pretty uneven loads.
You get all the credit in the media, but they actually do all the hard work behind the scenes.
Yeah, so the crews definitely have the harder job, and yeah, as you say, we take the credit generally. It's kind of unfair for them, but it's the way it is in sailing at the moment.
And just tell us about, getting a little bit more serious about the skills of a 49er helm. What makes the difference between a good, a bad and a great 49er helm, do you think?
I think the top 49er helms generally are very good at making decisions quickly and under a lot of pressure. And with the boats going so fast, you have to make split-second decisions, and that can make a big difference on your race. Whether you can cross a group or not can be the difference between going around in the top 10 and the bottom 10 quite easily when racing.
And how do you actually tell whether you can cross when you're on port tack and there's a bunch of starboards and it's a bit touch and go? What are your sort of visual references to tell you whether you think you can make it or not?
Generally you're trying to look from a long way out to kind of track where the boats are going. You can use, if you've got shore in the background, you can kind of see against that whether you're getting across, but generally it's just practice, and you kind of get to know the closing speeds and when you can cross or not.
And you've got that leeward tiller extension sticking out off the leeward side of the boat as well, which leaves you more vulnerable. Have you had your leeward tiller flip across the forestays of other boats in the past?
Yeah, we've had that several times, and when you're ducking boats as well, you've got to take into account that. So the boat, you have to always allow those extra margins, and even more so when you're sailing in waves with the difference in speeds that can happen.
And do people tend to let you off for little minor indiscretions like that, or are they very protest friendly? I'm sort of trigger happy on the protest.
It depends on the event and kind of where you are going. If it's a tight cross but on a ley line, and them going behind you means that actually they're ahead, generally people are okay with it. But at the top of the fleet, certainly everything that you can get protest someone for generally does happen when it's high pressure events like this.
Okay. And why did you choose the 49er? Where did you come from before getting into the 49er?
So I came up through the 420 class as a crew and a helm. That's why I ended up crewing at first. But I always liked the idea of the skiff sailing, the ASL sailing. I did Fevers before that, so I had a good idea about that. Quite like the idea of doing the fast boat stuff generally, as well as there's a lot of tactics involved. So that's the kind of side of sailing that I enjoy, which is why I'm now helming.
And how typical is it for somebody to do a bit of helming and crewing, or do people tend to specialise a little bit more than that?
I think generally people specialise because it's very size driven. The crews generally are taller and a lot bigger than the helms in this class, although the Kiwis are kind of against that rule.
They're the world champions.
Yeah,
and
yes.
Pete Burling is taller than Blair Tuke.
Yeah, so they've won 22 events in a row or whatever it is. But yeah, generally the helms are a bit smaller, so a lot of the crews generally can switch to helming, but it's harder for the helms to go the other way in most cases.
And what do you think the benefit is to you that you've done both roles?
I think certainly in the hard conditions I kind of understand what it is like to be in the front during those, how hard it is, whereas I think a lot of the helms that haven't done it, you're going to give a bit less sympathy to the crews, although I certainly get less sympathetic as I spend more time helming.
Right, getting older and grumpier.
Yeah, more demanding out of the crew.
How old are you now, by the way?
I'm 21 at the moment.
Okay, and so to someone say 5 or 6 years younger than you, what advice would you have for them if they want to start getting into the British squad and have Olympic aspirations?
I think you've got to try and get involved. The GB has a great squad system for the youth classes, so if you're involved in that, that's a great way to move up. And if you're looking to get into the 49er, getting sailing in the FX is a great way to get used to the boat, as the boat does bite when you get it wrong, as a lot of people found out yesterday.
Yeah, that was day one of the World Championships here in Clearwater, and it was pretty rough just getting out to the racecourse as well. There was a bit of carnage just getting to and from the racecourse. What tips do you have for actually surviving a day like that and actually making sure you don't break the boat outside of competition, let alone within the race itself?
I think you've got to be very cautious with one of these boats. I mean, it was the first time I've seen pretty much the whole fleet take their mains down to get back in. You're now allowed to have mast floats at this event, so for the less experienced teams, putting those on can make a big difference. As I think there was about 6 masts broken yesterday, and that can ruin an event pretty quickly as they've already run out of spares.
And have you taken the option of a mast float?
We haven't, no, because we feel that we can handle most of the conditions, and there's also towards the top end of the fleet you get quite a lot of ridicule if you put a mast float on, I reckon. So
is that the biggest factor? Is it the risk of humiliation that stops you from putting the mast float on, or is it the aerodynamic disadvantages?
Yeah, mainly it's the aerodynamic disadvantage you get as boat speed. As I said before, it's tiny differences that make all the difference, but the ridicule does certainly have a bit of an effect on it, certainly when training more than racing.
Well, wish you the best of luck here in Clearwater and also for the rest of 2016.
Thank you very much.